Good evening, guys. It is Saturday night. It is Pontificating with Pete on Revolutionary Change. Hope you're all doing well. Make sure that you smash that like button if you haven't already. We really hope you guys are doing great. Got a lot to share with you. I just came back from my brief interlude in South Florida. Got a lot to share as we're on the eve of another election, primary election in Florida, in which, to give you an idea of how much people are tired of electoral politics, and B, how much they're really tired of it in Florida, particularly South Florida, in the month of August. As of yesterday, 6%, 6% of eligible voters have voted in the primary. So to say that people have lost faith in the system would be an understatement. Please smash that like button. And a good morning to you, GB. Really appreciate you being here. Smash that like button, guys. I don't know why that's coming up as the Twitch handle. I would that's the better one. We are live all across the board. We are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitch. We are live on X. We are live on Instagram. We are live on Rumble. So let's try to get this out there to as many people as possible. Obviously, we really appreciate each and every one of you being here tonight. There's going to be a lot to cover, but I think you're going to enjoy it. So let's get into it. As I mentioned, I was in South Florida for the past 3 days. I wanted to kind of get an idea on the ground of what was going on, particularly in Florida's 20th Congressional District. For those of you who have been following my political journey for the past several years, you would know that seeing an end to Debbie Wasserman Schultz's political reign would definitely be a cherry on the sundae, since I do not live in South Florida anymore. But I really do sympathize with a lot of the people that are down there. I know that they really don't want to deal with her, but at the same time, money is the end-all be-all in many instances in the political arena, especially in a race like this where there are so many different moving parts going on. There was a big fiasco that happened while I was down there, which should come as no surprise. And one of the elements of that story is going to involve Looney Loomer, who, as you guys know, has played, unfortunately, an outsized role in my professional and private life. It is what it is, but it's not going to stop me. It's not going to get me down, nor should it do the same for anybody else. And the same is the case here. The person who chooses to wear the crown is the heaviest, and whoever ultimately is able to prevail in this race is, as long as it's anybody but Wasserman Schultz. But as I've said before, the person with the best shot to do that is Sheila Sherfilis McCormick. And as I expected when I got there, it was pretty clear in terms of the enthusiasm, the volunteers, the energy on the ground. It's clearly with Sheila. She's definitely the top candidate. After that, I would say it's former mayor of Broward County, Dale Holness, who has been desperately trying to get back into elected office for the past 6 years. It's not going to happen this time either, but it is just a situation where, unfortunately, some people just can't give things up. They keep running. Same is true for Uncle Luke, Luther Campbell, who is a hip-hop artist from the 80s and 90s turned political activist and now is running for office. If he scrapes 3 to 4% of the vote together, I'd be very surprised. We'll see if that happens as well. And then finally, we come to Elijah Manley, who a lot of people who know that have been paying attention to our channel, we are probably the one group that has not pulled any punches about the fact that he has essentially grifted his way into a $1.2 million fundraising haul over the course of, I guess, a year, maybe, however long it's been. It's kind of irrelevant. At the end of the day, not only is his campaign got no activity on the ground, and I mean no activity, because I was at all of the polling stations in early voting throughout the district. With the exception of Wilton Manors, which is the affluent, predominantly white LGBTQ community of, it's considered a suburb, if you will, of Fort Lauderdale. There are no signs. There are no volunteers. There are no poll workers. and he has no presence. And for somebody who raised as much money as he did and he has nothing to show for it, I think that that in itself lends to what we've been talking about at great length, which is, has Elijah been a plant all along? And I think it is fair to assume that the people, and some people that we know personally, have made a lot of money off of his campaign with little to no intention as to whether or not he can actually win. That does not appear to be in any way, shape, or form a priority. It's just not. And the reason I bring this up is because there was a situation. That's probably the best way that I can describe this. So where I want to start is, Ben, if you can grab, I think that this may be the statement. I need the message that I sent you from Michael Gottlieb. And so we will address, like I said, there's a few different layers here, to address on this particular story. But with that being said, there was supposed to be a rally last night with a multitude of different elected officials, candidates in Fort Lauderdale at a place called The Venue. And as it turns out, it did not end up going off there. They did end up, what I would say, huddling and, reconfiguring their play. And then they ultimately did it in another location. Obviously, it didn't have the same impact, but the fact that the Zionist brigade, led by Laura Loomer, in conjunction with Democratic lawmaker in Tallahassee, Michael Gottlieb, they ended up getting the event canceled. And so this is one part of the story here. Now, I don't know if you can blow this up a little bit, Ben, but this is just way too small for me to read. So I need you to either. Okay, that's much better. Thank you. All right, give me one sec. So what do we know about Michael Gottlieb? Michael Gottlieb is an attorney in South Florida. He is very much a very proud Zionist Jew who's been living in Broward County for a very, very long time. He's done very well for himself economically. And he is somebody who, when seeking elected office, is willing to carpetbag all over Broward County in order to achieve his ends. So he currently sits in a House district in the West Broward County area. And he is somebody who is very active with the Zionist Jewish community. And so he led the effort in putting out this statement. When your actions live up to your words, you have spoken without even needing to do so. Thank you to The Venue, Fort Lauderdale, for speaking out and acting justly. As was stated, you were misled into thinking the event was a Young Dems event. It was not. It was and will be an event tied to anti-Septicism individuals such as Larkin, Tlaib, Nixon, and others who are working hard to turn our government into a socialist economy. Considering, again, how economically benefited by the capitalist system somebody like Michael Gottlieb has been for a very long time, this should come as no surprise to anybody that he would make a statement like this. Economically speaking, the system has worked very, very well for him. So that's why he's saying this. The Venue did the right thing after the community spoke and their eyes were open to the truth. That takes integrity and courage. They are to be lauded and rewarded for that kind of conviction. It's easy to do something, but hard to do the right thing. They should stand proud today. Hate has no place in our society, except genocide against Palestinian people. He forgot to mention that part. So let's read the public statement coming directly from The Venue. Can you make it a little bigger? The Venue, Fort Lauderdale, wishes to address concerns regarding an event that had been scheduled to take place at our facility Friday, August 14th, 2026. This event has been canceled So much for free speech, right? This event has been canceled and will not be taking place at the venue Fort Lauderdale. Once we became aware of the full scope and nature of the event and reviewed the publicly circulated promotional materials, we immediately began addressing the matter due to the increased security concerns as well as the welfare of attendees. Yes, they're very concerned about the welfare of the attendees. The decision was then made that the event would not proceed at our property. The venue, Fort Lauderdale, is a Jewish-owned and operated, and our values and commitment to the Jewish community are deeply important to us. We want to be unequivocally clear that the acceptance of a venue booking should never be interpreted as an endorsement of the political views, organizations, speakers, messaging, or causes associated with an event. We are reviewing our booking and vetting procedures to help ensure that the nature, sponsors, speakers, organizations, and purpose of future events are fully disclosed and vetted before a booking is accepted. We are grateful to our community for bringing these concerns to our attention. Yes, I'm sure you're very happy that all of the very wealthy Zionist Jews in West Broward County were very concerned about you hosting an event that might have had 100 people. And for allowing the opportunity to address them. Yes, very much so. And so one of the things that I've noticed, and as you can see, this particular Facebook post, because that's where all the action ends up happening, is on Facebook. I want to just explain to people one of the things that I've noticed about Elijah Manley is that he has seemingly all the time in the world to engage with people on social media 3 days out from Election Day in a critical primary. But he calls him a Laura Loomer Democrat because it has been brought to many people's attention that Michael Gottlieb was working in conjunction with Laura Loomer to make sure that this event got shut down. Now, if you scroll, Ben, into some of the comments on the Facebook thread, I do want to highlight one of the other comments that Michael Gottlieb put in. I think if you open up the "You're a Laura Loomer Democrat" and drop that down, I think that there might be something in there. So Michael Gottlieb decided to respond to him. And if you can just open that up real quick, I just want to get to his response. No. See more. No. If you go to Michael Gottlieb, scroll down. Now open up See More. In response to Elijah Manley, Michael Gottlieb says, keep spreading your lies. You keep telling everyone you are Jewish. What's your Jewish heritage? I have never met Loomer or anyone who works for her. Sure you have. I have no affiliation, but I would defeat, I would to defeat. You got to love people who can't spell. And this is a lawyer, by the way. To defeat anti-Septicism and the anti-septic crowd you hang out with. The DSA platform wishes to deny the existence of Israel. Well, as you can imagine, Michael Gottlieb, like a lot of wealthy South Florida Jewish Zionists, there is no separation between Israel and Judaism. It is not permitted. So if you say that Israel does not have the right to exist, you are anti-Septic and you must be dealt with accordingly. And in the political arena, they play for keeps. As a Jew, how can you support that? I'll wait for you to answer a question without a lie or insult. Now, of course, there is nothing to say here because, again, as we know, the crux of this entire conversation comes down to one simple variable. Is there any daylight between Zionism and Judaism? According to the Democratic lawmaker Michael Gottlieb in the state of Florida, there is no separation. I don't need to read other people's responses, but let's just say that the gentleman right below, Scott Evans, this is a person who is also Jewish, who says he feels the need to spread these lies. Scott Evans is a very proud supporter of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So are they going to have enough? That's the big question. Will they have enough to pull this off and keep Debbie in power? Well, considering that the Black community is not able to unify, and on top of everything else, I want to be very clear here when I say this. I am going to get into a portion of this conversation now where I want to be crystal clear about Elijah Manley. The issues that I have with Elijah have nothing to do with the fact that he's gay, that he's black, that he claims to be Jewish, whatever the hell that is. The issues I have with him is that he's a dishonest operator and very likely a plant that might end up continuing to allow Debbie Wasserman Schultz to remain in power. As of this moment, he has raised $1.2 million for his campaign. He has not only spent all of that money, he is apparently 80,000 in the red right now. And then you have election day coming up. You also have one more voting day tomorrow. So is he going to continue to go into the red? I don't know, maybe. But what is he spending his money on? Because I could tell you from being on the ground for 3 days, he ain't spending it there. I was at all of the polling stations. In many cases, people didn't even know I was there. But I observed. I walked the grounds. I saw what was going on. Elijah had nothing. He had nothing in Plantation. He had nothing in Tamarack. He had nothing in Lauderhill. He had nothing in Sunrise. He had nothing in Deerfield. Honest to God, nothing at the African American Library. And you're a serious candidate? And again, we're not talking about one little thing. We're talking about everything. No lit material, no signs, no campaign workers, no volunteers, and I didn't see him once. So what's he doing? And the other thing that was brought to my attention is that pretty much everything that he sends out, for these campaigns was solicitation. Solicitation for more money, more funds. Okay. When we go live on Thursday, and I say, I told you so, you'll understand why I'm as passionate about this as I am. I only have one goal, and that is to see the end of Debbie Wasserman Schultz's career as an elected official in U.S. politics. Forget Florida, just politics in general. That to me is my priority. So if anybody's wondering why I do what I do, this is the reason. Guys, we have over almost 350 people watching. If you have not hit that like button yet, please make sure that you do. We obviously want to get this out there to as many people as possible. And the more you hit that like button, the more you comment, obviously, the better it's going to be for the algorithm. So I would just appreciate each and every one of you if you would do that. Let's get that up there again. Get to the beginning. Okay. And obviously the chat is lively already, which is great to see. So let's keep it going. Where is my like? Ben, can you get me the Loomer story, please? The X tweet. So Looney Loomer, and this is the event, Chomp the Oligarchy was what it was called. The reason they made such a big stink about this, and this was being headlined by Angie Nixon, who is really surging in a lot of ways for the nomination to be the Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate in Florida to run against Ashley Moody, hopefully overtaking Zionist extraordinaire, Mr. Alex Vindman. And so here's what she had to say. Chomping the Oligarchy event canceled after getting Loomered. So she is taking credit for it. And now you know for a fact that Gottlieb is lying. DSA Islamic communist candidates book Jewish-owned venue to harass South Florida Jewish community. Yes, that's exactly what they were doing, harassing the South Florida Jewish community. Again, how do you know a Zionist is lying? Lips are moving. So we've seen the highlighted portions here. Now, if you scroll down a little bit, we're going to, no. Okay. So the response here from Elijah Manley, which probably upset Loomer considerably, was, listen up, Jigsaw. You will not use Judaism to push your hateful, bigoted agenda. The show goes on. Well, Needless to say, that wasn't too much commentary, but it was enough to get Loomer to go loony, which is what she often does, because she's clearly a bipolar nutcase. This homosexual black congressional candidate in Florida is calling a Jewish woman Jigsaw. Clearly that messed her up. She doesn't like being called that. What a shock. To avoid personal accountability after being exposed for campaigning with Rashida Tlaib. The horror! A known jihadist. I want to freeze there for 1 second. Rashida Tlaib is Palestinian, the only federally elected Palestinian in the United States. And I believe she has had in excess of half a dozen family members murdered by Israel. And you call her a jihadist? Remember, the only reason she gets away with this is because she's protected. She is protected by very likely a president that she is having sexual relations with. And I do mean real sexual relations, up and down. And of course, when you're going to attack somebody for being a Muslim, you call them a jihadi or a terrorist because you don't have an argument. You just have bigotry. And as I've said before, and I'll keep saying it, the last line of defense, the truly last line of defense that Zionism has in the United States is anti-Muslim bigotry. That's the last thing they got. And unfortunately, on a number of people, it still works. I wish that wasn't the case, but we know that it does. And she's going to keep using it. As long as it works for her, she's going to keep doing it. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we push it right back at her for doing it. In reality, a known jihadist, an open Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood supporter. In reality, Elijah Manley will always simply be an ignorant, uneducated, because you got to throw the uneducated in there. He's black, so you got to make sure you say he's uneducated. Gay, black man who would be tossed from the highest building in Gaza. Instead of dealing in facts, he wants to mock my appearance like a typical gay man. Loomer, you've gone under the knife so many times that you deserve the ridicule you get because you are as ugly inside as you have become outside. You are in your early 30s and you look like you're 50. That's your problem. That's your psychological trauma that you have never properly dealt with. You have been committed by your own family, your father. Your siblings are deathly afraid of you. We're only telling the truth here. We're only letting people know that this, in fact, is who you are. So you go after Elijah because he becomes an easier target, because he is black, he is gay, and he has dealt with his own issues. But that's what you think is the proper discourse here, is to go after her for that reason. I'll give Loomer this much credit. She is an open racist bigot. I would much prefer dealing with people who just let it fly. Don't, and it's not come after me, bitch. It's come at me, bitch, or come at me, bro. That's how you got to say. You could call her a bro too if you want, because I got to tell you, when I went to, and on this, another thing that I'm going to mention is that I was at the event that Angie Nixon and Rashida Tlaib hosted yesterday. I will not say where it is, and I won't say who was involved. I will just say that I was proud to support that event. They think Laura Loomer's a man. Good people who are not involved in the brouhaha of the everyday politicking in South Florida and just in general. They thought Laura Loomer was a trans person. They really did. So that's your problem, Loomer, not anybody else's. It's like chickens for KFC. He's Hamas's useful idiot. Since you're the token gay black man for the Islamic commies, I'd say I'd hope you know how to fly, Elijah. But there's no more tall buildings left in Gaza. Now, there's a person who's openly supporting genocide. She'll drop the hints every so often, but she'll let you know that she's totally on board with mass murdering innocent children, women, and the rest. There's no more tall buildings in Gaza. Imagine thinking that that's a gotcha, that that's something to celebrate. Mike, that's a winner chicken dinner. Come at me, bro saw. I dig, and I appreciate. And here's the nasty conclusion. You'll go back to sucking dudes off on Wednesday when you lose your election on Tuesday. Try not to get AIDS. Now, if this is a person who isn't on meds, they clearly should be. But I appreciate this version, the real version of Loomer, who just says all of the bigoted, nonsensical bullshit that can just fly out of a crazy person's mouth at any given time. The only person who would know anything about sucking endless amounts of dick is Laura Loomer. That is her reputation. And to be completely transparent, I don't care. I don't care if she fucks a different guy every day. I don't care if she's into orgies. I don't care about any of that shit. It's her business. So why do you care what other people do? People know you're a floozy. So in many ways, it's just projection. And if you really want the full scope, because as I said, Loomer is really a lunatic in so many ways. This is how she talks about people, but it's not the only person she talks about. And it's always about their personal sexual dealings that they'd go through. It's like I said, I don't know why she cares about this so much. I think that she has her own personal hangups about the fact that she's such an easy prey or an easy target. Whatever it is, if you're going to go after Elijah Manley, go after him because he blew through $1.2 million and he's run for office 6 times in a decade. And he left Jen high and dry when she ran for Congress, even though we helped him many times with a lot of money and a lot of support. But he never reciprocated it. He uses people and he forgets people. And he'll do the same after this election's over, and he will most certainly run again for another office, and certainly will receive money from whoever that is. I tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth when it comes to politics. I don't have communication with certain people in politics anymore that, had I had it, maybe it would be beneficial to Jen and I. But then I wouldn't be honest. Being honest is half the battle. That is our responsibility. I want Wasserman Schultz to lose. And I know that the only way she's going to lose is if Sheila Sherfels McCormick gets more votes than she does. But to wrap it all in a nice tight bow, I want people to see how Laura Loomer talks about other people, especially in this case, her archenemy, Candace Owens.
Is a liar, okay? And she's a deeply insecure woman who is very unloved at the end of the day. This is a woman who is allegedly in a relationship with a gay man who is always going to feel the rejection of her family, the rejection of her mother, the rejection of her family that she claims left her alone when she was 14 years old, right, to fend for herself. This is a girl whose parents gave up on her at a very young age, and she is not loved. And as I said, God hates you, Candace. God hates you.
Now, I've never seen projection quite impressively before, but I would say that that is the most projection any one person can ever speak into a microphone. You should just be saying your own name. And just remember something too, Loomer. Candace lives rent-free in your head, and so does everybody else. I had mentioned the other day that Ilhan Omar won her re-election primary by a landslide in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Maybe Laura might get a coronary from that. Who knows? There is no question that the amount of destruction that Loomer has done to so many for so long can't be ignored. And when history is written about this period, when we look back upon what has happened, and people start getting their comeuppance or their justice, Loomer is somebody who is desperately going to need to be brought to justice. And she is going to need to figure out how to get out of this country and find her safe space. The days are numbered. There are people who can't be saved from this. She's one of them. Hegseth is another. There will be many. But make no mistake, Loomer is going to get hers. One day, someday, hopefully, very soon. Now, unfortunately, because as we have seen, this system is breaking, and it's becoming more and more obvious to those that have been paying attention that at the very top, you have people in positions of authority that are able to get away with things that make absolutely no sense. Somebody like Loomer is not going to skate. However, the Kushners, on the other hand, are in a position of authority where they are going to be able to get away with a lot before all is said and done. Now, even though this is not Albania and a little private island that these disgusting twits are trying to take over, and it's not even Jared Kushner. No, it's not. It's actually his brother, his younger brother, Josh Kushner. Those of you who know me know that I am a sporty fan. This is one of the reasons I have to talk about this without Jen being here, unless it's the NFL and it's the Miami Dolphins. But this is the NBA. And anybody who knows the NBA knows that the Los Angeles Lakers are the most valuable franchise in the history of the league. And rightfully so. I am a Laker hater. I freely admit that. I hate everything the Lakers represent. But at the same time, I can respect that they are an historic franchise that has won as much as any, along with the Celtics. And so I don't take that away in regarding that. But there is no question that when it comes to NBA brass, power, things of that nature, all of that goes out the window because we have known for years about the commissioner of the NBA, former commissioner of the NBA, David Stern, who brought the league to prominence in the 1980s with Magic, Bird, and Michael. And as a result, the league became a global phenomenon. But David Stern also had a very, very close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. There are endless amounts of emails in the Epstein files that detail their conversations, including Commissioner Stern referring to everyday people as the Goyim, that the Jews don't have to pay for anything. This is all documented, and it's not surprising. And there's always been suspicion over many, many years that the NBA is not above board. I can remember one specific instance, and we'll test the knowledge of any of our sports fans here in the chat that remember the 2002 Western Conference Finals between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Sacramento Kings. The sixth game in LA, I have always maintained, was as close to what you can actually call a rigging of a basketball game in real time at that level, at that much consequence that would have sent Sacramento to the NBA Finals. It completely changed the course of NBA history as a result. Years and years on down the road, you now realize that many things have trickled out about that particular game. The Lakers have always had a very, very favorable position when it comes to how things operate in the NBA. And in this case, it looks like the new ownership is going to be one of the Kushners, along with Bob Iger, who is the CEO of Disney. A record-setting $12 billion with a B is what they're paying for this team. But here's the more interesting caveat to this story. And isn't it amazing, ladies and gentlemen, how much Josh Kushner looks like a Jason Biggs knockoff? I can't get that out of my head. I'm seeing American Pie flashbacks. Billionaire Josh Kushner. How did he become a billionaire? That's the bigger question. How did Josh Kushner become a billionaire? You know, it's always interesting when you learn more about these families and you know what they've been able to get away with and how they get access to all of this money. But in the case of billionaire Josh Kushner, who just bought the Lakers for $12.5 billion, OpenAI's Sam Altman once said he doesn't care what others think. Here's a reason. You can scroll a little bit, please. Jared Kushner has just announced he is teaming up with former Disney CEO Bob Iger to buy the Los Angeles Lakers for a record $12.5 billion. The new sale still needs approval from the NBA's Board of Governors, but it would mark the largest sale price for a professional sports team in U.S. history. That's any sports franchise, by the way, more than anything the NFL has ever paid. And just the latest in Kushner's string of very lucrative investments. Josh Kushner is the younger son of real estate tycoon and federal criminal Charles Kushner, who was pardoned by the Donald in 2020 and is now the U.S. ambassador to France. His older brother, Jared Kushner, is the son-in-law and former advisor to President Trump, and his wife is the supermodel Karlie Kloss. Man, talk about not losing at life. But Kushner made a name for himself at just 26 years old when he founded Thrive Capital in 2011. Since then, his firm has backed some of the most notable startups of the past decade, including Instagram, Spotify, and OpenAI. And therein lies the rub in many ways. A 26-year-old with all of those connections starts a venture capital firm, Thrive Capital, and probably knew that he was going to be earmarked for tens, if not hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars right out of the box. This is what happens when you're born on third base and think you hit a triple. And this is also the problem with the compounding of value that one is able to accumulate because they just happen to know the right people. And the system is obviously rigged because Sam Altman's business isn't worth jack shit as far as I'm concerned. But for whatever reason, he's able to maintain his growth pattern within his industry. Not because of anything that's tangible that you could point to and say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's because the system's rigged and they're the ones rigging it. As ChatGPT and with it, its parent company OpenAI has gone on to become one of the most valuable AI ventures in the world, Kushner and Thrive's profiles have soared. At the time, not many were willing to invest in the newcomer. And even OpenAI CEO Sam Altman himself told Kushner the company was anything but a sure bet. Yeah, I'm sure he told him that and that they can announce it. Yes, he is very much that. But Thrive has ultimately put in more than $2 billion into the ChatGPT maker since its inception. Most recently, it invested roughly $1 billion in OpenAI at a $285 billion valuation in December. At the November 24 Fortune Global Forum in NYC, Kushner revealed that he invested in the company for two key reasons. He believed in the person running the company, and he had a gut instinct the company would stand the test of time. Let me assure you, he doesn't have any gut instincts. He doesn't have any theories. He has what we call sure things. He's told what to do, he does it, and he wins. Heads I win, tails you lose. That's how he operates. You don't have to like it. But this is how Fortune, this is how the Wall Street Journal, this is how Politico, this is how all of these publications operate. They protect the investment. I was listening to an investment podcast earlier today from my commercial real estate business, and I had to listen to a guy basically ignore a very important caveat when it came to a critical investment and how, just in general, why one part of an investment ultimately falls apart. He was talking about Sears, and he was addressing the fact that Sears is a company that has basically been, put out to pasture. But why has Sears failed? Sears failed because it got bought out by a private equity giant, and the guy sold it off for parts. He didn't give a fuck. But he wasn't going to mention that part of the story. And that's the other part of the story when it comes to how these criminals, like father, like son, how is it that the Kushners are able to get away with this? Because they are criminals and they're rigging the system. How is it that Jared Kushner is in a position with Steve Witkoff to decide how Gaza is going to be redone? You don't hate these people enough. That's part of the problem. And so, since day one as a firm, we have been very much oriented towards being extremely concentrated in people and ideas, he revealed, adding, it's the people steering the ship who often keep it afloat. In our world, there's an inferiority to technology. Those assets are fairly limited, but I think most importantly, it's so driven by the person who's running those businesses as well as investing in people. He also said he abides by the investment philosophies of Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. If Charlie Munger was still alive, he would tell you to go fuck yourself. And Charlie Munger supported single-payer healthcare, by the way. I always appreciated that about him. But he probably could have done a lot more with his money to make it so. They say one thing, they don't do enough. I know, we want more, we deserve more, we should get more. I digress. We've always believed in the Munger-Buffett way of the world, power of compounding, one of the wonders of the world, and to hold these companies for a long period of time. We have been of the belief that there's a very small amount of companies that one should be a part of. You need to be their most meaningful partner. You need to be extremely long-term. Adding that in his eyes, OpenAI is like Fifth Avenue, a jewel you own for decades to come. OpenAI is a disaster. And the problem is Altman and Kushner are not going to suffer for it. We will suffer for it because it will be subsidized. It will be pushed onto the working class of this country to subsidize this. Remember, it's rugged individualism for everyone else and socialism for the rich. That's our system. To deny it, you need look no further than this. How else can somebody like Josh Kushner get to $12.5 billion with Bob Iger to buy the Los Angeles Lakers? Now you understand why. We have a deep respect for Google and Meta, but our belief in the OpenAI is going to be one of those. We feel very lucky to be partnered with them. Scroll, please. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman once said Josh Kushner makes high conviction bets and doesn't care what other investors think. Yeah, because again, the game is rigged. Kushner, now 41, first met Altman in 2011, but it wasn't until 22 at a closed-door event for tech CEOs in Arizona that the duo went on a walk together. Did they hold hands too? Altman has been making note of Kushner's investment in founders at splashy startups, including Slack, Instacart, and payment giant Stripe. Staying loyal and lavishing them with attention, even during rocky stretches. Again, because he has an open ATM machine. It's not his fucking money. It's money that is provided to him by having a venture capital firm that all of the shady billionaire ruling class oligarchs of the world stuff into his coffers because they know the score. They don't have to have these meetings to decide what's good and what isn't. They understand. And in the case of the data centers, in the case of the AI, in case of Israel, they all know the score. We're going to get to Theo Vaughn in a minute discussing the data centers. He invested in a style that is close to what I do myself, Altman said. Josh makes high conviction bets, doesn't give a shit, blah, 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 blah. I feel a lot of camaraderie with that. Yes, I'm sure you do. A few months later, in early 23, Thrive led a round in OpenAI, investing nearly 130 million at a 29 billion valuation. Just throw numbers at the wall and convince people that that's what it's worth. As I've pointed out before, this is what little Ben Shapiro is trying to do with the Daily Wire. He's trying to boost up the value of the organization and get some sucker to buy him out because the valuation is worth a lot more than the business can actually hold. Please move that. Meanwhile, Thrive was most recently valued at 12 billion. According to who? According to who? Making Kushner, who has a majority stake in his company, the richest in his famous family, with an estimated 5.2 billion net worth. Like I said, money doesn't mean anything anymore. Keep scrolling, please. And as for Hager and Kushner, their partnership didn't start with the Lakers. Hager started working with Thrive Cap. Oh, there it is. So Hager's been working with Thrive Capital in September of 22, and the venture capital firm already holds minority stakes in the San Francisco Giants and the Miami Heat. Mickey Harrison, who owns the Miami Heat, is a Zionist Jewish man as well. Before that, Kushner owned a piece of the Memphis Grizzlies. Meanwhile, Kushner and Hager had previously been tied to a possible NBA expansion team in Las Vegas. And let me tell you, they're going to get that team. Vegas is going to get a team. It doesn't make any sense. And if anybody's been to Vegas in recent times, as I have, you would understand that it really doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. But in the end, it's not really supposed to make sense. The more we notice, the faster the system breaks in half, which is exactly what needs to happen. Eventually, people have to stop trusting that this system can be salvaged. It can't. There is no rhyme or reason how the Kushners have access to this kind of money unless they're criminals. And the Lakers, anybody else, I mean, listen, it's easy for me to hate the Lakers already, so I don't give a shit. But for any Laker fans that are out there, sorry, guys, you're rooting for the bad guys. Now, let's talk about a good guy. Of all the, if you even want to call him a manosphere podcaster, I really do like Theo. I think someday, Travers, you are right. We'll know for sure, depending on how the vote splits come in his race on Tuesday as well. But yes, I would agree. Theo Vaughn comes from Louisiana. And Louisiana is one of the top states in the country for data centers. Louisiana has also been regarded in many instances as perhaps the most corrupt state in the union. When you consider that New Orleans is a prime destination in the United States, people from all over the country, people from all over the world like to go there. It is always a happening place. And you would think with a city that brings in that much money for the state, they would be able to spread the wealth around in terms of state taxes, etc. Louisiana is a bottom 5 state and has been for decades. So the corruption is thick. But the corruption is getting even thicker when it comes to this issue. Yeah, our good friend is from there as well. So Theo sat down this past week with Erin Brockovich. Here's some interesting caveats about what's going on in Michigan, as well as Louisiana, and the underhanded tactics that the billionaire class employs through electoral politics that maybe many of us were not really aware of. Here we go. To even take this into consideration, to even think at the size and the scope of this effort by Zuckerberg, Fuckerberg, I think would be probably the more appropriate name, and Meta. They're building a data center in the state that is going to require more juice than the entire city of New Orleans. That's pretty sick, wouldn't you say? This is the surveillance state. And again, it's not a data center, it's a surveillance center. It's Big Brother. That's what we're up against, and a lot worse. But there's a lot more.
Country.
When you think about the size and scope of how far this goes, and the fact that it's probably been going on for a long time, now we are just starting to kind of understand how significant this problem really is. This does no benefit for anybody. And the rebellion is just starting to take shape. And the thing that they're noticing, you know, the great noticing of the people, well, the ruling class is starting to take notice as well that the people don't like this, and that they're taking to task their local elected officials who, again, and Jen and I have pointed this out time and again, if you really care about electoral politics and you want to stay in it, local. That's where it matters. Who's your city council members? Who's your mayor? Who's your county commission? Who's your state representative? Who's your state senator? That's what really matters. If you don't know who those people are, then stay out of politics, because you're not helping. You're focusing on shit that doesn't have any true value in many ways. It's the local officials where elections can be decided by a dozen votes. We see it happen a lot. It's incredible how much closer these local elections can be. They make a huge difference. And very often, most people don't even know they're going on or don't care enough to know that they're going on. Could you imagine a local elected official telling you that I'm not going to answer your question about your safety, your health, your economy? I don't answer to you. I answer to a wealthy benefactor. I don't understand how some of these officials are not running for their lives. I just don't. This is our future. Future of our country, future of America. So much of this comes down to greedy sons of bitches at local levels who are so desperate for money, so desperate for power, so desperate for relevance because they're such insecure, unhappy bastards who have to sit in elected office for their entire lives. And this is how they stay. They get their wheels greased by the people who can keep them there because the money is unlimited. And the people be damned. And communities destroyed, lives ruined, and ecosystems completely decimated, perhaps forever. And all for what? I still don't understand what the point of these centers are, other than surveillance. What are they hoping to get out of it? I still don't get it. And I think we have a right to be very skeptical and a right to be very upset. And many of us are not saying nearly enough as we should. And Brockovich is right. And, you know, Erin obviously came to prominence in the 1990s when she unearthed an environmental catastrophe in California. And the same is happening now. And when she speaks, a lot of people do tend to listen. And so I applaud Theo for having her on, and I applaud them for uncovering this very deceptive approach that the billionaire ruling class is now employing. They are having local city council officials sign NDAs regarding their bribes, because that's what they are. They're bribes to make sure they look the other way and get their surveillance centers permits approved for construction, development, and the rest is history. And no one seems to be saying anything about it. And while we lose our country, this is one of the reasons why. Do you know how your local elected officials feel about these issues? Are they standing up to them, or are they going along with them? I'm going to read something to you from a local South Florida mayor who I know personally. And this is in regards to flock cameras. I want you to get an idea of what happens with a local official with power. That matters. All right. Give me 1 sec. Man, this guy posts a lot of stuff. All right, come on. Come on. No, it's not that far back. Let's see. Just gonna have to look it up the old-fashioned way. Maybe he took it down. I think he did. Yep. I think he took it down. So essentially what he did, we'll talk later, Jen. I don't want to talk. I don't want to call him out. It doesn't matter. Point is, the defense of these cameras sound exactly like anybody would sound if they were defending data centers. It's good for the economy. They'll make you safer. That's what somebody who sounds like they're bought off would say. Somebody who's a little too close to the action. These things are a violation of our civil rights. We have a right to speak up for this, and yet we do not have enough people who are doing it, and these elected officials are just going along with it. Somebody probably did, and then I'll figure out who did. But in the end, we are in a revolutionary moment, and it's going to keep growing and exacerbating as we go forward. We know this. We know this, period, because they're not going to stop. Look at Kushner working with Sam Altman. This is not going to stop. That's why we can't stop doing what we're doing. We cannot stop speaking truth to power. We can't do it. This is too vital of a moment in the history of this country, in the history of the world. If you think things can't get to the point where we're all slaves, you're wrong. Because they can basically get to a point where they can control all of the resources. And that's what they're trying to do. Part of the entire process is that they basically want to control the population, and this is one of the ways that they see that they can do it. They're convinced that the country can, more or less just do whatever they want, and we won't be able to fight back. But we are fighting back. Just are we fighting back enough, I think, is the big question here. And that's why we should be applauding the fact that Erin Brockovich still does what she does. Hats off to her, and hats off to Theo Vaughn for using his platform to cover important stories like this, because these stories matter. And knowing that this is what these city councils are up to, I refuse to answer. You refuse to answer? You're a public fucking official. Who in the fuck do you think you are? Let me tell you something. There is a reason why so many people envy and celebrate and laud and romanticize the mafia. Because there's a reason why neighborhoods, for example, like the south side of Chicago, Bensonhurst in Brooklyn, there's a reason why these neighborhoods don't get touched. There isn't crime. People are safe. Because organized crime protects their territory. If a community was controlled by organized crime and these sons of bitches tried to come in there and bring in their fucking surveillance cameras, let me assure you, it'd be taken care of pretty quickly. They get rid of them cameras, you wouldn't see nothing. And that's how it works. That's why that old school mentality, that old school Hoffa mindset has been lost. We're too soft now. That's why we let this shit go on. We don't nip it in the bud as soon as it starts to fester. But it's festering into a metastasizing situation, and we're not going to be able to stop it unless we accept the fact that this is a revolution. That's the way this is going to go down, and that's the way it has to be. And this is why, when we see these stories like the ones from Nick Shirley, who I'm still convinced is a creation of the establishment, and that is exactly what Thomas Massie, who in my opinion is the last truly honorable representative on Capitol Hill, is pointing out about this young man who has been given an incredible amount of money, influence. Yeah, it's something about these Nick guys. Fed Wentes and Shirley are serious. Don't call me Shirley. They're serious feds. Here we go.
It'd be a bit shocking. Remember when I went and exposed the adult daycare scam inside New York City? These adult daycares were billing for an impossible amount of patients inside of Flushing, Queens for adult daycares. For instance, this guy right here operated an adult daycare that received $44 million of your taxpayer dollars. I exposed it plain and simple, and Governor Hochul in Miami absolutely went completely silent. And it's super funny because when I exposed the daycare fraud in Minnesota, then New York City gave $4.5 billion to 2-year-olds, and I said, why are you doing that? They said, well, this initiative extends mainly to 2-year-olds, but intellectually you may be eligible. Governor Hochul started beefing with me, and I was like, well, I'm going to finish it. Well, now it turns out that Governor Hochul is receiving donations from these adult daycare scammers in New York City.
Do I think that some of this is possible? Yeah. This is politics. This is the dirty business of politics. One hand washes the other. I grease your wheels, you grease my wheels. I give you money, I give you a lot of it. I get the contract for the daycare centers in Queens. Largest Chinese population in the United States, I'm pretty sure, is in Queens. But they're turning this into, some type of a clandestine operation. And guys, we have over 500 people watching now. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please make sure that you do. I am going to emphasize this again. I don't want people here, if they're not going to hit the like button, because it's the least you can do to help our channel. It doesn't cost anything. Please hit that like button. Surely we can't be serious, but we are. We're very, very serious. Now, is it possible that what Shirley is talking about here is the truth? That this is actually going on? I'm sure. I'm not going to outright dismiss it and say that it's not possible. Let's continue.
Well, now it turns out that Governor Hochul is receiving donations from these adult daycare scammers in New York City.
Living Well received $8.6 million in 2025, and on their peak they billed the state for 406 beneficiaries. My name's Nick Shirley.
Well, Kathy Hochul received over $55,000 from these adult daycares in New York City. Yes, this guy right here has been actively donating to Kathy Hochul. So the reason why these politicians get so mad at me when I expose the fraud is because I'm exposing the very dollars that benefit them and their political agendas inside of their own state.
You see, the problem with Nick Shirley is that he's an agent of the Trump administration and the GOP. See, he doesn't do any of this regarding any of their crimes. I have no problem exposing the actual criminal behavior that these guys are doing. I think it's very reasonable to want to cover this type of stuff. At the same time, you're only telling part of the story. This is no different than the shitlibs who want to talk nonstop about the crimes of the Trump administration, yet never address anything that the Democrats do. Because again, it's two sides of the same bird. They're all doing the same thing. We don't have publicly funded elections. So, ergo, with rare exception, if you run for office, especially if you are the governor of New York, it costs a lot of money, and the donations are going to expect you to respond in kind. I give to you, you give to me. That's how this works. So is it possible Shirley's onto something here? He could be, but there's more to it than what currently meets the eye. He's not telling you the full story. Does he ever? No, he's only telling you part of it. And when he's been confronted, he squirmed like a little bitch. I've seen it happen.
Politicians have learned that fraud is the best way to gain control of a large group of a population, because why would a group in a community cut off the hand that feeds them? More specifically, why would any community ever vote against somebody who is giving them money no matter what? We have so much money here inside the United States that we are able to hand millions upon millions of dollars and no one will even notice. And now that somebody's looking and these politicians are being exposed, they're all freaking out, and Hochul is one of them.
Now, he's not the only one, because as it turns out, Thomas Massie decided to call out Mr. Shirley, and rightfully so. Hard to take Nick Shirley seriously until he starts calling out Johnson, Thune, and Trump for funding the daycare fraud in every omnibus and CR bill with no guardrails. And that's how you know that there's only one part of the story that's being told at all times. Do you think Shirley's ever going to mention this? You think Shirley's ever going to mention that you're being played for a goddamn fool if you think that these stories don't have a second component to it as to why this is being set up that way? It's a divide and conquer strategy. It always has been and it always will be. That's exactly why they're doing this. This is exactly why you get somebody like him that is being pumped up by Elon and everyone else within the MAGA sphere that think that this guy's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And of course, everyone comes after Massie, saying that he's wrong. No, he's not. Massie is too real for politics. That's the problem. Being this honest and exposing the system this blatantly, this brutally, it should wake everybody up. The problem is that it's a very small section of the population that essentially lives online all day, every day, talking about politics. We do what we can with our channel to try to get the message out there to as many people that aren't the ones that are caught up in and the celebrity's not the right word. It's the gossip side of politics. It's the dirty side of it. It's the tug of war. That's not what we do. And it never will be. And we know for certain that Mr. Shirley is definitely not who he says he is, because then you see things like this. Now, I will always point out that there's a few things about Nutlick that can't be denied. The first one is that he was the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald in the North Tower on 9/11. And much like Larry Silverstein, just decided not to show up for work that day, even though they had been to work in the towers every day for many, many years. His fake crying on TV. The fact that there's never been a formal investigation into Cantor Fitzgerald and any of the whereabouts of what he may have been involved in. The fact that he was Jeffrey Epstein's neighbor all those years on Palm Beach Island. This never gets talked about. A person like Nick Shirley does not pose for a photograph like this with Nutlick unless he's in the club. It's that simple. So when you wonder why only part of the story ever gets told, yes, are there certain businesses that are getting their wheels greased because perhaps that particular neighborhood provides a certain amount of necessary votes to keep certain elected officials in positions of power? Yes. One hand washes the other. And if they don't deliver the votes, the money goes away. That's how this works. This works at every level of politics. We saw how it worked at the city council level. You are now seeing how it works at the top of the state level in New York. Nick Shirley is not that impressive. He's just not. Give somebody the money who's good in front of a camera. It could all be a Nick Shirley. It can all be a Nick Fuentes. I could do it. But integrity is more important. Yep. Everything and everyone at this level seemingly has a price. And that price is, I don't know, eternal damnation, if that exists. But here in this world, they want to rule. And in some cases, they're willing to do it by any means necessary. There is no limit to what they will and will not do. It is a shame. But again, the photos don't lie. The stories don't lie. Why people are obsessed with somebody like Nick Shirley, I will never understand. But maybe, just maybe, people really aren't. Maybe the truth is, Nick Shirley simply exists because the establishment allows him to. And people are taken in by it. I've told the story before about how I went to a notary office in Davie when Jen was running the second time, and I saw that the whole place was basically a shrine to Trump. And when I walked in the door, I told them, you know, you really got a really great place here. It's a really great place. And she was so convinced at my ability to emulate Trump that she called her sister almost like a prank to get me on the phone with her to start doing my Trump impression. And I did it. And I told her, you're a really great girl. And she starts crying. She starts having I love you, Trump. You mean so much to me. Too many people are taken in by the celebrity. They're taken in by the need, as Jen says, for upper management, having people tell them what to do. If the MAGA base tells people to listen to Nick Shirley and his propaganda, people are going to listen to it, and they're going to boost him, and they're going to prop him up because they know, as one hand washes the other in politics, Nick Shirley's going to do his job. He's going to do exactly what he's told. He's young, he's impressionable, and he's making an ungodly amount of money doing it. So naturally, he don't want to lose that position. Who would? That's how Josh Kushner got where he is. Young, impressionable, criminal enterprise, connections to Israel, and everything in between. That's how you get there. And that's how you stay there. You have to understand the rules, of course. You don't play by the rules, you're out. They understand the rules. Those that manage to stay there for a very long time, they know the rules. And that's how he got there. And that's why he's staying there. But maybe, just maybe, with the likes of Thomas Massie, enough people will start to see through it, where the work will never be as effective as it once was. Here's hoping. If you are enjoying this conversation so far, which we hope you are, please consider going over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty, despite heavy suppression even this evening, but still growing channel. We really appreciate each and every one of you who have stepped up tonight. So let's give a shout out for where we're at so far. Citizen Pendejo with the 20 pesos. Polls are fake. They missed Saeed by 15 points. They missed Hong by 20 points. Again, the polling industry is a cottage industry. It is a lot of money. It is a lot of value, and they don't have to get anything right. Do you know the only poll that really matters, ladies and gentlemen? The exit poll. That's the one that matters. Citizen Pendejo with the 50 pesos. As a Piston for life, I'm genetically programmed to hate the Bulls. I adore our other arch rivals, Lakers, but Josh Kushner buying LA calls for BDS of the NBA. Couldn't agree more. And Libertarian Social Dem with the $4.99. One thing I have to admit, if Bilzerian wins by surprise this Tuesday, he will be more hawkish on combating the Zio agenda than other people, which is needed. Dan Bilzerian is not winning on Tuesday. Donna Vorsi with the $10. Great to see you, says Nicole Jenis just did an expose on the Zionization of FIFA. Their tentacles are everywhere. If there weren't genocidal maniacs, it wouldn't be quite so bad. I would be happy to look into that one. I do take, I happen to like soccer, real football. So that issue actually matters to me as well. Happy to look at it. Libertarian Social Dem with the $4.99. Since I registered as a rep to vote for Fishback, since I learned more about he is a deep psyop, I decided to cast my vote for Bobby Williams as symbolic. Completely understood, brother. And Libertarian Social Dem with the $4.99 again. Why is nobody covering Bernard Taylor, who is running against the other Brian IDF Mast, who needs to get out of Congress? Bernard is Asa PAC endorsed. I would be happy to touch on Bernard. I haven't had a chance to. Mast, unfortunately, is another person who's heavily protected, but Bernard can always use a boost, and I would be happy to address that on Monday. Ramu Venkat with the $4. I don't see Elijah Manley on the DSA website. Yeah, that's probably because the DSA decided to vet him a little more carefully and probably realized that, yeah, he's probably not who he's made himself out to be. It is what it is. Judith Ann Campbell with the $10. If they have the surveillance centers and the farmland, our guns will do us no good. They know they can't outshoot us, so they want to surveil us and starve us out. Yes, that is probably part of it as well. Libertarian Social Dem with the $1.99. Governor Abbott is the most anti-Muslim evil governor. Yeah, he might be. I wouldn't doubt it. Skedward Bobby with the $5 Canadian A. Thank you very much for your support. And finally, Teresa with the $2, 440 plus viewers. Yesterday was a payday. Thank you very much, as always, for supporting our channel. We're at 465 right now. Guys, keep smashing that like button. Keep sharing the stream. Let's get this out there to as many people as we can. Obviously, again, we are fighting that algorithm. It's not fun, but remember, we are live not only on Patreon, we are also on Substack. So let's get that one up. Remember, we are streaming live to our friends over at Rumble. So make sure you're subscribed for Revolutionary Change on Rumble. Make sure you're subscribed on Instagram, on X, on Twitch, and on Facebook. I understand if you don't want to do Facebook, but make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, and let's continue. Now, of course, I can't stop all of these Zio bastards. It's not within my purview. I'm going to try to do the best I can. That's what our platform is for. But I will also say that if you're not fully aware of who some of these most despicable individuals are, I want people to understand the domestic side on the one hand and on the international side on the other. Things have picked up exponentially in terms of the violence, the bombing. Right now, Jen and I on the last show talked about the fact that perhaps we will get a piece of meat regarding the Zio state when things start to fall apart. Perhaps the three stooges of Netanyahu, Gavir, and Smotrich will be hung in the town square, and that will satisfy the masses ever so slightly for the short term. But be crystal clear about this. It's never going to be enough. The end of the state must commence, and we know why it has to. Because people like Gavir are only speaking for the overwhelming majority of the Israelis that live in that stolen land. And here is more proof of just that.
אני חלק ראש הממשלה, אני חושב שצריך לעשות סיכולים ממוקדים בעזה, כל לילה להוריד 30-40. לא רק אלה שמסכנים אותך באותו רגע. אין, יש אנשים, הם לא בני חיים, הם לא צריכים לחיות, הם לא אנשים, גם אני נותן להם מחמאה שאני קורא להם אנשים. ואני חושב שאנחנו צריכים להשתקם בטיפול, בעזרה, בחיבוק של עם ישראל, אבל גם בלהילחם באויבים האלה. אני בדמיון את כל עזה שלנו,
אמן.
יישובים, לא רק בגוש קטיף, בכל עזה, לעודד הגירה כמה שיותר, לשלוח לארצותיהם, ואת המחבלים, שום הגירה ושום כלום, אותם להרוג אחד-אחד.
כן, ביטחון לאומי של מדינת ישראל.
Now, what you also have to remember about these people, I don't know who this podcaster is, this Ryan let me blow this up one more time. Ryan Rozbayani. Got to be careful with some of these names because some of them sound Italian, you know? But then again, Israelis steal everything, so nothing would surprise me. Ben-Gvir is sitting down for a podcast talking about how we need to be mass murdering 30 to 40 Palestinians a night in Gaza. Does this guy push back even a second? Does he even say to him, you know, that's kind of a little nuts? That does sound like genocide. That sounds like mass murder. It sounds like you're trying to completely end a civilization. Is that what you're trying to do? But no, it's the, oh, yes, this is a great idea. I wish I thought of it myself. I think blowing them up to pieces is definitely the way to go. Insane, isn't it?
לאזרחים, מה תאחל לנכי צה"ל, למשפחות השכולות.
אושר, נחת, הרבה אהבה, ובעזרת השם, אינשאללה, כמה שיותר מהר, שאנחנו ניכנס לכל עזה, נתיישב לכל עזה, נעודד הגירה, ואני אומר שוב, כל לילה צריך להוריד 30, 40, 50 מחבלים בעזה, רק בעזה עצמה.
יותר.
The money from our country goes to them. They get it. They are committing mass murder, genocide in our name. You can imagine how this makes me feel. I'm sure it makes all of you feel terrible as well. And they are not going to stop. We have to assume the worst, and we have to fight back with whatever tools we have. When I say I'm passionate about making sure that Wasserman Schultz loses her election, it's because I want there to be some type of an infiltration on Capitol Hill that doesn't involve the support for this genocidal state, because that's where it comes from. I have pointed out that the last time I was on Capitol Hill, that you have the little Zio bitches running around the halls of Congress, knocking on all the doors, telling them to support Israel or else. So they get their mind right and they know how the bread is buttered, how the sausage is made. That's why Gvir does this. He's emblematic in many ways of how the people feel. He's a psychopath, but then again, so are the majority of the Israelis. So are the people we've discussed earlier tonight, like Michael Gottlieb. You think Michael Gottlieb would ever put out a post addressing Itamar Ben-Gvir? Of course not, because he agrees with all of it. They can say all they want about how, oh, Netanyahu's doing this, they agree with it. They just know politically it's not, they can't ascertain support if they are continuing to push for him. But if they just remove him, they could just put it in another person, and then it'll continue.
I want you to get this fuck where he breathes. I want you to find this Nancy boy Elliot Ness. I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to go to the middle of the night. I want to piss on his head.
I mean, you know, like I said, we need a little dose of mafia dealing with these people. And I'll tell you, for those who may have seen this, and this is extra disturbing. I think a lot of you have probably seen the reports that came out of Gaza from, I forget the gentleman's name. Let me, I want to grab it, just make sure I get it right. Because he's been doing excellent work and really needs to be given his flowers. He puts himself in harm's way. So he goes by Andre. You guys have seen Andre X. He's really done an amazing job. This is what they had to deal with in the West Bank the other day. So again, it isn't just about Gaza. It's the West Bank. It's southern Lebanon. It is the insanity of this genocidal state and what they're doing to the world. And here's an example of that.
Fuck.
army from down there are shooting live ammunition at us. Okay. בתוכו.
First, let me just say that the courage it takes to fly that flag in lieu of what's coming for them, that's beyond bold. That takes real courage. Because you fly that flag, you know you're a target. You know they're coming for you. And when Gavir puts out statements like he puts out, you know that he wants those people targeted. And he wants them targeted for death. Not for arrest, not for banishment, not for reprimand, for death. Kill him with extreme prejudice.
Hey, 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 hey!
נכנסתם לבית שלנו? זה לא הבית שלנו! זה הבית שלנו!
This clip is way too grainy and bad. I'm going to start it again. It can't be this bad.
אני גם פלסטיני! אני גם פלסטיני, זה בית שלי! מי אמר לך?
This is the ownership document of Elias here, standing next to me of this house, which settlers just took for themselves.
מי שתי המחבלים שתלו את הדגל המחבלים הזה? מי שנמצא פה כרגע הוא מסייע לטרור.
כל העולם כבר יודע שאתם טרוריסטים.
אתה ריבון! אני הריבון שלי, זה הבית שלי.
You know, I'm really surprised that these inbreds are able to stand out in the sun as long as they are for fear of actually contracting skin cancer. You know, that's the #1 place in the world for skin cancer, by the way. Do you really think those papers mean anything to them? Do you really think they give a flying fuck about you having some type of legal document? There are no laws. They're their own laws, and they make them up as they go along. They're going to get what they're going to get until we as the United States push back. We're trying to do it. We're not doing it fast enough, but this is why we have to continue to cover this. Because this is a reminder of where our money goes. Our money goes to people like this who commit mass murder on an insanely crazy level. But they don't care. Rachel, if you're watching, please send a word out to Raleigh Rashid. I've been wanting to get him back on for a while, so let's do it. Definitely want to talk to him about that. In fact, we should probably try to get him on for Monday because I know right now we don't have a guest for Monday. So let's work on that one. We'll continue.
זה לא שלך, זה לא שלך, זה לא שלך. זה לא שלך, זה לא שלך. אתה אל תיגע בי. זה לא שלך, זה לא שלך, אל תיגע בי. אל תיגע בי. ממני, זוז ממני.
They opened fire at our unarmed journalists. I want to file a complaint as a journalist. They don't want to take my complaint. They opened fire at me and the Japanese journalist.
אנחנו לא רוצים לדבר איתכם.
הם ירו עלינו. הם ירו עלינו.
We came with the owners of the house and with the taboo, the land registry for this house, and settlers have put up flags and giant Israeli Magen David on it.
This is the most disgusting part of their ideology. And again, I would say to these people who are holding these papers, who fucking cares? They don't care. This doesn't enter their mind. They don't give a shit that you have papers proving that you own this house. They took down the Palestinian flag. They put up these flags. And it wasn't just one. They had to put up a half a dozen of them because one is never enough. Again, we are directly involved in this. We are directly responsible for this because as Americans, we allow people to do this. We allow people to say these things. We allow people from afar to give a lot of money to these organizations that give money to these guys to do this. That's what they do. That's why they get away with this. We don't hate them enough, and we're not fighting hard enough.
Up flags and a giant Israeli Magen David on it. We came to take down these flags and to make the place worthy of living again. And as Jews, we have the privilege to not be slaughtered immediately by these settlers. However, they still came and shot at us. Liar. These things, they shouldn't talk to us because they're scared they'll say something illegal. Everything that they're doing is illegal. This is private property. We came with the citizens of this place, and they're protecting the settlers and refusing to tell us why.
That is a new Israeli settler terror outpost, which was set up by the settlers about a year ago, and they paused construction during Christmas because it's right in the city of Bethlehem, and they didn't want the bad PR. And now they have been taking over Palestinian houses and Palestinian land in the whole area. And of course, in the end, they're aiming at taking over Bethlehem itself.
He's a good guy. And I appreciate the fact that, Audrey is willing to put himself in harm's way the way that he has. It takes a lot of courage to do this. It really does. I mean, at any one moment, you can get somebody like this guy, as you could see here. This is the psychopath that decided to take a shot at them. He fired his weapon. That rifle, they tried to kill him. Now, thankfully, they didn't, or he didn't. That thing didn't. What if he did? What would have been the story regarding Andre and his assassination at the hands of this psychopath? What would have happened? Would we have even known about it? Would they have covered it up? Of course they would have tried, but who knows? But this is what we're dealing with here, guys. This is the cross we have to bear. Every time one of these psychopathic animals fires those weapons at innocent people, it's another moment that our country hasn't revolutionized our way out of the Israel-US State Department alliance. We are prisoners in our own country at the hands of these animals. So remain militant and keep fighting. And don't let these stories die. Otherwise, people like Andre are not going to be able to survive out there much longer. So that's our responsibility. Keep spreading the word. And we spread that word because there is a person on the state side that has been at the forefront. Now, look, we have had some amazing rabbis on this podcast. Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro, the good Shapiro, and of course, Rabbi Brant Rosen in particular are the ones who come to mind, who really understand the size and the scope of what's going on here. The fact that there is no separation between Judaism and Zionism, which is exactly the reason why we're in this predicament right now in many ways. And then you have people like Rabbi Yosef Mizrachi, who are emblematic of all that is wrong with what the Zionist cause has become and how it has completely mangled Judaism to the point in which people are starting to feel that maybe we just need to get rid of the Jews. That's how it gets to this point, and it gets there because of people like this.
Gets angry, the Jews in control, they control the money. So who will control the money? You compare. The Goyim gets angry, the Jews in control, the Jews in control, they control the money. So who will control the money? You compare yourself to the chosen. You don't see their blessing by God. It's good for you that they run the country and they run the.
They really believe this. I'll play it again, hopefully at a smaller pixel that'll play better. Let's see.
And the Goyim gets angry. The Jews in control. The Jews in control. They control the money. So who will control the money? You? You compare yourself to the chosen people. You don't see their blessing by God. It's good for you that they run the country and they run the world and they run an economy. The whole world came to destroy the...
No. There is nothing good about a so-called chosen people claiming that it is best for them to control the money, control the world, and that we should be grateful that the chosen ones have not done away with us altogether. Again, this is psychopathic ideology. And this rabbi, who has been making the rounds for quite some time, there are one of several that talk like this, that think like this. And normally, as I would say, I wouldn't care. It's really not that important to me. But the reason this has become a primary talking point for many of us is simply this. They have a lot of control. They have a lot of influence, a lot of money, a lot of power. It's that simple. So when they talk like this, they're talking like this from a position of power, authority, and influence. And this is real. They really feel like this. I wish people would stop even suggesting that they're really not this crazy. Oh, they are. They really are. They're not hiding it. And the more they spiral out of control, the more they will continue to act like this. So it's imperative that we keep exposing them.
The Jews, all the empire, all of them are gone, and the Jews remain always in power. It's unheard of. According to the laws of nature, the Jews should have died already in the first year after they got the Torah, when Amalek already came. They had no army, no weapon. They're in the middle of the desert with no children, and all of a sudden they are being attacked one day after the other. Back then already it was a huge miracle to survive. 3,300 years of bombs and Holocaust and all kinds of wars and empire coming to Jerusalem to burn us alive. All those empires disappeared, and we are above everybody, always in power, always we are the head of the world. Imagine the world without us. The world.
Oh, I do. I do. I think a lot of people do. Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows everywhere. They're colorful, and that's what makes me so happy. Sorry, I had to do a little jig. I do think it is something that a lot of people have been thinking about. And he says it so flippantly, as if to suggest that the world would end without them around. No, I'm afraid the world would rejoice in many ways. They said it, not me.
Would be 1,000 years more primitive. All the inventions in the world almost all come from Jews, mainly Israelis.
Okay, so therein lies the rub. All the inventions come from Jews, particularly Israelis. Where the hell did that come from? Yes, Jews have been responsible for a number of important inventions. But you know, the biggest anti-Zionist of them all, Einstein, theory of relativity, the atom bomb. This guy hated Israel. He hated everything that it represented. But they lie like they breathe. They refer to all Jews as Zionists, even though the overwhelming majority of the most successful Jews who ever lived were not for Israel. Many of them were working class individuals who had great ideas, and they saw them through. In death, they like to rewrite their history and presume that these people were fully on board with everything that they've ever done. There is the problem. They steal because we've allowed them to steal. They rewrite history because we've allowed them to rewrite history. And the history since 1948 has been written in such a way that any of the great achievements of Jews in the 20th and the 19th centuries, they're being erased. And it's because of people like him. And that has to be said. And whether or not anybody wants to admit this or not, when you do have control of the banking system, which goes all the way to the top with the Rothschilds, he who has the gold makes the rules. And that's effectively the way this has worked. And that's why you're not going to see too much pushback on somebody like this man. But we not only push back, we push back on it the right way. Don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. But that's what they're hoping for, because as we've said, one of the biggest reasons why Zionism has thrived to the extent that it has is because they have refused to allow there to be any airspace between Judaism and Zionism, even at the detriment of the violence and the hatred towards Jews, which is very real now. You know, they're out there talking about, oh my God, Jews don't feel safe. You know what? You shouldn't. And it's incumbent upon the Jewish community to speak up against these fucking lunatics. But they don't do it. That's their sin. Because there is a code of silence within their culture. They know that they're wrong, but not enough of them speak up. We love the people within the community led by the likes of Medea Benjamin and Code Pink. The people at Jewish Voice for Peace. People like Jen. People like Katie Halper. People like Lee Camp. People like Max Blumenthal. Erin Mate. They're out there. And they're doing everything they can. But sons of bitches like this, they suck all the air out of the room. And that's all you hear. You hear him. You hear him in their psychopathic genocidal ideology. And let me assure you, they're not the only one in the world that thinks like this. They have a case system in India. People have supremacist ideologies in all different forms, including what we have here in this country. Keaton and Russell, great reference. And we need to be crystal clear about this. Nuance doesn't get you clicks, but it does get you respect. And that's all we care about.
Medicine, doctors, surgeons, biggest judges in America, all kinds of designers, architects, artists, musicians, big rabbis, philosophers. Try to imagine the world without the Jews.
Well, again, we're trying to imagine that, but I also want to say there is a significant difference between the Christian Zionists and the Jewish Zionists, and here's what it is. If you look at the overwhelming majority of the populations where the Christian Zionists come from, the Deep South, the Heartland, places in the country where education is not a priority. Remember, in Jewish communities, education is very important, like the most important. New York, Miami, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Denver, Philadelphia, Boston. Education is everything. In the Christian Zionist-dominated parts of the United States, the Heartland and the South, education is not the most important thing. In fact, the most important thing is the church. And in the evangelical church, you are taught from a very young age that this is all that matters. We have seen the Zionist pastors that have said that the Jews are the chosen people and you are to bow down to them. They say that to their congregations. And as we know, the biggest Christian Zionist state in the country is Texas. It has 3 of the biggest grifting pastors this country has ever seen: John Hagee, Joel Osteen, and Crazy Eyes. That's how Copeland should always be referred. Copeland's got the eyes. The demon seed is in the eyes. They always have been. But as I've said, the thing you have to remember about these particular communities, the Christian Zionist communities, the big difference between them and the Jewish Zionist communities is education. And when you're brought up to believe that everything revolves around the church, and if the church in question, in this case, evangelism, tells you that Israel is the end-all be-all and you don't bow down to them, you'll burn in hell, let me assure you, it scares the ever-loving bejesus out of people, and it indoctrinates them from a very young age. Christian Zionism is much more based on religion than Jewish Zionism is. Jewish Zionism is much more based on economics. Christian Zionism is definitely about the true believers. And that's the danger. But it's also why, and we've said this before, the Jewish Zionists provide the money and the Christian Zionists provide the flock. And that's how they've been able to maintain this for as long as they have. That's why when the rabbi talks the way he does, the pastors then reiterate that message to their flock and tell them, yeah, he's right. Don't question him. He knows what he's talking about. And so, of course, that's how we get to this point.
The Jews are 0.25% from the population. And the Goyim get angry. Jews in control, the Jews in control, they control the money. So who will control the money? You? You compare yourself to the church people, you don't see their blessing by God? It's good for you that they run the country and they run the world and they run economy. I want to remind you, the United States was on a point of bankruptcy in 2008. Everything here was about to destroy. And who saved this country? Ben Shalom Bernanke. He was the chairman of the Fed.
I don't know if you're calling me a dummy, Piano Man, but I know exactly what you're referring to. Yes, there is a portion of the evangelical Christian Zionist brigade that only want the Jews to be in Israel so that the rapture can happen. And again, that's not all of evangelism, but it's certainly a decent portion of it. There's no two ways about that. And yes, the population is much bigger. But that is what they want. And again, it's all a means to an end. It isn't a question of whether what they're saying is something that anybody actually agrees with or believes in, because it isn't. It's just bullshit. Everything is a means to an end.
The Federal Reserve. He was a religious Jew, Shomer Shabbat. Even though in public he didn't show his yarmulke, but he walked to synagogue on Shabbat. And he made some brilliant moves with the interest, bringing it down, bailing out banks, forcing the banks to buy the small banks before the country will become a complete anarchy and chaos. People will kill each other here on the street. United States will become worse than Russia after USSR collapsed. And he saved this country, but they have zero gratitude. A religious Jew with his brilliance, this economist, Bernanke, Google it. You don't have to believe me. See the moves he made. You teach it in schools. The country was on the point of all the banks will go bankrupt. You don't know what happened. I was in Wachovia Bank. It was a powerful bank. They went bankrupt. He forced Wells Fargo to buy them. He forced Chase to buy many banks. If not, do you know how much money people would lose? And the FDIC was up to, I think, $50,000 per account. That's it. People had millions in their account, life-saving. All of that will be wiped out. Big mortgage companies collapsed. This country, 2008, was in a disaster. And who saved the country? One brilliant religious Jew. Anybody appreciate it? No, nobody even speaks about it.
Nobody's going to speak about it because everything is all about dollars and cents. But let me say this. The banking system manipulation, the printing of the money, is something that the rich and powerful do to convince the public that what they're holding is actually of any value. But no, the real value is intangible assets, precious metals, real estate. That's where real value is. Controlling the banks is controlling the illusion of money. As long as people believe that a dollar is a dollar and that that's worth something, they'll fight for it tooth and nail to convince themselves that it will always be that way until it isn't. That's what's coming next. BRICS will inevitably take the reins. Now, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's in the process. And that's why when we talk about these financials, and yes, illusions are real, Krista. Illusions are real. If you are convinced that a $100 bill is worth $100 without actually asking, but how? It's just paper. Why is it worth 100? Because another person is willing to believe the same thing. Yes, it's worth $100. I'll take it. But if things start to fall apart, how are you going to be able to prove it? You won't. It's like saying, how do I know that gold is worth more than what somebody's willing to give me? Because it's the most sought after element in the world. How do I know that silver is worth what it's worth? Because again, silver is not only a precious metal, it's a tangible asset. Do you know that silver can be used to alkaline water? Yeah. That's just one of many valuable components to silver, including its current capabilities. Can't build solar panels without silver. It's a prerequisite. Real silver was how you determined the value of actual coinage. Gold is for the rich, and silver was for the working class. Gold has always existed for the rich, but silver was taken away from the working class right after JFK was assassinated. And it's been that way ever since. They finally realized that the people can't have a population that isn't under our thumb. So they figured out how to do that. The rest is history. So understand that element of money, and we'll all be better for it. Because it's only going to go up, because the dollar is only going to continue to go down. We cannot print our way into prosperity, and we're not going to. The empire is collapsing, and it's because of people like this dumbass rabbi that it is happening. So we have to prepare accordingly. That's our responsibility. And on this channel, more so, more than ever, it is imperative that we share this knowledge because it is real. And just in case you ever end up in a vampire situation or a werewolf situation, well, actually, no, I don't think silver does anything to vampires, but I think it does to werewolves. I think Hot Dog's right about that one. But all kidding aside, knowledge is power, and understand that this rabbi, he's making a really, really strong case about what the world would look like if the Zios no longer existed. Don't tempt me with a good time. We've come to the end of the show and the story I know a lot of you have been waiting for. I have said for a very long time, and I will keep saying it, I am convinced beyond any doubt that Charlie Kirk was assassinated on behalf of the state of Israel because his organization, which is extremely powerful in the grand scheme of politics, was causing way too much trouble than was worth keeping. And as such, what has unfolded in what is almost, we are 4 weeks away from the 1-year anniversary of his assassination, less than 4 weeks. But in that time, a lot of things have developed. Now, why Turning Point USA thought it was a wise decision to have douchebag of the year, Andrew Colvett. They're all the, what is it with these Andrews? Andrew's becoming a very questionable name these days. Andrew Wilson. Why was Andrew Wilson so desperate to sit down for an interview with Candace Owens, or a debate? If you want to call it a debate, I call it more of a mopping. That's basically what it was. It was an embarrassment. It was a murder scene. It was a murder. I'm surprised he was able to get out of there. But he wasn't unscathed. There's one part of the entire conversation that actually mattered. There is an insistence on the part of Andrew Wilson, who I believe is being paid by TPUSA, to push the narrative that Tyler Robinson is responsible for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Lone gunman, end of story. That's the way it should be. Candace Owens, on the other hand, obviously has used her platform for all it's worth to show that that is not the case, that that is not the story, that there is much more to it than that, and that she knows this case inside and out, which she evidently does. Andrew Wilson doesn't know anything. So if the intention was to try to create some type of a narrative that Candace was in over her head, that in reality, Tyler Robinson has always been the guy, even though the evidence is overwhelming that at most he was a patsy, but he was not involved, more likely. And that all the signs point to a grand conspiracy involving a lot of different powerful people in high places. You know, kind of like the director of FBI saying, "See you in Valhalla." I mean, I know we're living in idiocracy, but at some point we have to accept that the public is going to wake up to this. And they are. Candace did a masterful job. This is the most important part of the entire debate that Patrick Bett, Star of David, hosted. Here it is.
You're just not following it enough. It seems pretty, like, if you're going to engage and you're going to say the evidence is overwhelming that Tyler Robinson is guilty, I just think that you should, like,
right.
Can you tell me one
Then let's do the
charge
counter.
that he's...
You can really, great gotcha.
No. You just got to ask me, play clips out of context, put me in the hot seat. So please just answer the question.
This is fair.
One thing I have to say about this particular debate. This guy is a very sweaty mess. Boy, it's getting a little hot under the collar, isn't it, Mr. Wilson? Hey, Mr. Wilson!
Put me in the hot seat, so please just answer the question.
This is fair. Name all 7 since you've been following the case.
Okay, sure. You name one.
Yeah, you named all 7.
I'm happy to do it. Can you name one?
I think he's been charged with murder.
That's actually incorrect.
Okay, great. Now name all 7.
He doesn't even, this is like...
Name all 7.
And
so he can't name one, but now his counter is, can you name all 7? I don't know how he thought this was going to be a gotcha, or that she wasn't prepared for this. And the other thing that I want to point out, did he actually, or did the organization give him the money to pay Candace $300,000 to do this humiliation ritual? Because, yeah, that's kind of what it looks like to me. That's probably what he gets off on. You know, he acts like a man of the manosphere. He's anything but hey, everybody's got their kinks, ladies and gentlemen.
Can you name all 7?
I can.
Then do it.
Sure, you don't have to
do it. No, do it. I'll count them. Go ahead.
You put yours up.
Okay, hang on. Name them.
Yeah, sure.
Name them.
The first charge is aggravated murder, because that's what carries a death sentence in the state of Utah. No, that's not. That is literally not
Okay.
And so
next.
just for people, no, I don't have to do.
Go ahead.
You don't
Name
have to put
'em.
your fingers up. I
Okay,
can do
hang on.
that.
Name them.
Yeah, sure.
Name them.
The first charge is aggravated murder, because that's what
Okay.
sentence
So
in the
murder.
state of you. No,
Next.
that's literally not murder.
Okay.
And so
Next.
just for people, no, I don't have to do it in a time limit. There's nothing going on. And just to explain to people the difference of why that really.
Okay. Now, you guys know that I am as pretty much anti-woke as it gets. Andrew Wilson absolutely, unequivocally hates women. He can't make it more obvious if he tried. Now, there's probably many reasons as to why he hates women, but he also is extremely unintelligent. And Candace is very intelligent. So he's getting himself embarrassed, and because he's such a dumbass, he probably didn't even realize it in the moment when it was happening. And I am really sick and tired of men who degrade women. I'm really sick of it. And of course, it's a guy like this. And women are not saints. Don't get me wrong. But this type of shit, this bravado, this physical intimidation, in many ways, I don't really give a fuck that he acts like this. I care about the people who think what he does is a good thing. Therein lies the trouble. His name, his handle is Paleo Christian. He is I don't think he's the direct owner, but I believe he's a co-owner in the Whatever podcast. And then he also has a Christian channel that he also runs. So this shouldn't come as any surprise to anybody, that this is how he conducts business. He's as phony as Turning Point USA. We're going to get to the reactions in a minute.
Matters and shows that he doesn't actually care about this at all is because aggravated murder, it's narrowly defined, and because it carries a death sentence. I'm going to answer the question.
Okay,
I'm just going to recognize that your strategy of thinking that people are intimidated when you try to put a time constraint doesn't work, and you'll be better the next time you debate someone.
I got it. Give me the other ones.
The more you cut me off, the longer I'll take. Do you want to just wait for me to finish of why that's a big difference so that people walk away?
You to list the charges.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. You just don't get to pretend that there's a time constraint for me to do that.
Well, how long does it take you to list 7 charges?
Because I'm speaking. You just got.
It sounds like you're just delaying it because you don't know them.
I know all 7 of.
The only reason that he's doing this is because he doesn't have an argument. This is a common practice with debate amateurs. They deflect, they deny, they divide. That's it. He's trying to make a point against her point, which doesn't have any point being made. So, Candace is, again, you're talking about a Class A debater who knows exactly how to do this and is going to continue to embarrass him.
And I'm going to say again, because you're going to get embarrassed, you don't have to rush this. I'm also showing an example of a very flawed debate strategy. I actually am under no time constraint.
I got one.
Great. The second charge is the felony discharge of a weapon. The next 2 charges are for obstruction of justice.
Okay.
The next 2 charges are for witness tampering.
And the specific charges, though?
That is them. Obstruction of justice, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, witness tampering.
Okay, and there's no other specifics to them.
Well, I can tell why he's being charged.
No, just the charges, and then 7?
Yeah, see, the bad thing is when you try to be an a-hole and it doesn't work.
What's the 7th?
The last charge is violence in front of a minor.
Okay, got it. So then he's being charged with murder. You just say aggravated murder. That's the distinction. You just
it's a massive. It's like you cannot say murder versus aggravated
massive
murder.
Distinction.
Despite what this ass clown thinks, and I'm not a lawyer, but I know this much. There are many different forms of murder. There's first-degree murder. There's murder with malice. There is murder. There's aggravated murder. There's second-degree murder. There is manslaughter. Again, I'm just going off of a few different examples. But when he is suggesting that there is no difference between murder and aggravated murder, you're dealing with a dumbass, a person who has no business sitting in that chair. But I am a premeditated murder. Well, that's first degree murder, but yes, premeditated is another way of describing first degree murder. And and language does matter. That's one of the reasons why we pride ourselves on this channel of always being nuanced when it comes to discussing key topics, not just going for the clicks. Nuance is imperative in a dumbing down society. We have to lift up the thought process. And this is a prime example of that. Because again, the problem is there are people listening to Andrew Wilson, including people in the MAGA brigade, like Tim Pool, among others, saying that Wilson did the better job. He did a great job. He destroyed Candace Owens. Could it be because they're on the payroll that they would say such stupid shit? We already know that Benny in the Closet Johnson, Gunther Riegelman, the who's who, Cat Turd. I think we're all seeing the same thing here. At least I'm pretty sure we are.
It's a massive. It's like you cannot say murder versus aggravated murder.
Distinction.
This gets to the entire crux of why him being up for the death sentence. And I actually find the defense's filing about why this is not aggravated to be very compelling of why it's aggravated murder. I actually think that if the state was going to even try to pull this off, they should have charged him with just murder. And then I do also, again, want to stress to audiences that debate strategy gets some sport. I think he thinks it's a blood sport. It's not. It's about being right and being principled when you're engaging. And you can make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, but at least be genuine in pretending that you care about this case enough to know one of the 7 charges that are up against Tyler Robinson when you say the evidence is overwhelming that he's guilty. If you would like to move to final statements, I'm fine. I want to make sure Andrew has had the time that he has requested.
I think your team would like to pull up the 7 charges that he just asked you about. If you guys want to pull that up just to confirm the 7 you went through. Can you guys zoom in a little bit? For
aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, obstruction of justice, which is counts 3 and 4, 5 and 6, tampering with a witness, and count 7
violent
offense in the presence of a minor.
In front of a child.
Yeah.
So 5, 6, tampering witness, 3rd degree felony. Now I did notice something I just was curious about. If I'm just wondering, when you pulled out your phone just before you asked that question, did somebody by chance text you that question?
You can check my phone.
I'm just curious.
No, you can absolutely not. I have not had one communication.
Okay.
This is what he's reduced himself to. He's reduced himself to suggesting that she was coached to say what she was saying because he absolutely got bodied by her. This isn't a debate. This is a crime scene. And it isn't Andrew Wilson that got buried. It was Turning Point USA. It was all of them. It was Blake Neff. It was Andrew Colvett. It was Mikey McCoy. It was Erica Kirk. They had their reputation and everything that they have been grifting off of for the past year on the line, and they put it in the hands of Andrew Wilson. And they're the ones who pushed for this. She didn't push for this shit. They did. They wanted her to sit down. We're gonna get Candace now. We're really gonna nail her ass. She doesn't know shit. Candace is a talent. You don't have to like her. And there's lots of things about her that many people don't like. But I have never once questioned whether she was good at what she does. She is great at what she does. And that's why she is where she is. She's had some help along the way for sure. But she is a dynamic talent. She is very intelligent. She's very knowledgeable of the issues. She's very beautiful. And she knows how to work the game. And she's done a fantastic job at that. I don't have to like everything that she says because I don't. But I know enough to understand and respect how she got where she got. Andrew Wilson, on the other hand, Much like with Fuentes, there are way too many unhappy, desperate people out there, and they take advantage of those that have just kind of given up and are raging at the world, and their rage goes through guys like that. They like when Andrew Wilson tries to moralize on women and tell them that they're wrong. The thing about Andrew Wilson, which has always amazed me that anybody couldn't see through this for the longest time, Andrew Wilson likes to get on women who like to enjoy themselves sexually. They do the Whatever podcast in Miami and typically bring on women who do OnlyFans. Now, I've never used OnlyFans, but if somebody wants to use it, again, as the libertarian side of my political ideology, I don't care. That's their business. I hate the fact, and I've always hated the fact, that OnlyFans was owned and operated by a Zionist Ukrainian Jewish guy who died of very painful cancer. And I didn't have any sympathy, nor should anybody else. But if women feel that that is the direction they want to go in, that's their business. In the case of Andrew Wilson, he likes to bring these women on and basically chastise them for what they choose to do with their personal lives to make himself feel better about the fact that he's a miserable fuck. He had a guest come on and talk about the fact that his wife, and this is a guy who preaches being a good Christian, noble individual. He's married to a woman who's been married 3 times and has 3 different children with different men. And of course, he lost his mind over that. He can give it, but he can't take it, which is why in this case, he took it and he can't handle it. Candace made him her bitch, and she isn't done. And he's trying to weasel his way out of it. Keep going, Candace. Keep nailing his ass.
The single person, not even my producers who are in there this whole time we were here. You want to check my phone? I'm happy to do it because you're just going to get double embarrassed. Where's my phone?
You want to see it?
I'm just curious. Yeah.
You can literally do that. Here you go. PBD, you're the moderator. Take it.
I appreciate the fact that there is at least one hate watcher in the chat who thinks that Andrew Wilson was the one who came out ahead on this conversation. I always appreciate you showing your face. I mean it. I do. I appreciate anybody who's willing to put themselves out there. Good for you.
Let's
See if anyone was texted at all during this debate.
All right.
About the violent charges or anything.
I'm looking through this. You give me permission.
You
so
have
I'm looking
full
at, I'm not
permission
gonna
to
give
go
names.
through my phone. I don't need to cheat.
So the last one has nothing to do with it. It's just a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't even read my text messages.
That's
so
a compliment.
He's reading them.
You're okay. You give me permission.
Yes.
I'm just going to read 3 of them
Yes.
to 11:32 because after that, I don't need to read it.
And you know their texts. Could have been Telegram. Could have been something.
All
like
I
that.
have is Signal. You can check that too. I only have Signal. Telegram
The foot twitch is a nervous twitch.
I used in Russia. And that was it. I downloaded it for
I'll
Russia.
take your word for it.
Yeah. I don't need to I deeply care about this case. I don't need to pretend
I get
to
it.
know
If you
stuff
deeply
that I
care
don't
about
know.
the case, I
Yeah.
just, I have my other question is about the steakhouse receipt.
Immediately trying to pivot, but again, like I said, this was a very long debate. I wasn't going to subject you guys to too much. And in the heat of these conversations, this is where the crux of it really comes down to. This is the thing about throwing as much shit at the wall and hoping that some of it sticks. And as Marty points out, the silver bullet, no pun intended, is Tyler Robinson the person who did the deed? And the answer is obviously no. So where do we go from here? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to try to do other than what we've already heard, which is that Tyler Robinson apparently is suicidal. Jen has said that it will not make it to trial, just like the Luigi Mangione case was not going to make it to trial. And so there you have it. I love my chat, but I love my women, especially that are here, when it comes to giving their opinion about men like this. It's not that us men can't give opinions about other men, but it is the women who ultimately can see through how these men can compose themselves, conduct themselves, and they can tell you point blank if this is a guy that they would ever want to be caught in a dark alley with. And chances are somebody like Andrew Wilson is not the type of guy that you want to be around. Chances are he's definitely got some, very unsettling opinions about them. And as Jen has pointed out, he's terrified of women. Yeah, he probably is. And there are probably many reasons for that. I am very appreciative. We will see what ends up happening. And thank you, Beta Wilson, for proving our point even harder about Tyler Robinson and the state of Israel regarding Charlie Kirk. We are one step closer to a breakthrough because of your stupid ass. Congratulations. If you've enjoyed this conversation, which we hope you have, and we've got a number of key stories to get to on Monday with Jen, including Israel has just landed in Colombia. And by Israel, I mean troops. It's getting pretty bad. But the IOF have found their way to South America. They're a little too close for comfort, among other reasons. So Jen and I will have quite a lot to talk about on Monday regarding that, among other stories. We will also address Luigi Mangione and why he went down the path that he went down. Jen is convinced that his attorney knows what she's doing and is making the right call. We will see. But in the end, he's a hero, and we should be forever grateful for everything that he's done. The conversation about healthcare continues. We are unequivocally single payer, period. If you enjoyed this conversation this evening, which we hope you did, please consider going over one more time to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty, despite heavily suppressed, yet still growing channel. We really appreciate each and every one of you who stuck it out for the entire evening, and those of you who have jumped in from time to time. I want to give a very happy or a very big shout out to Pirate Justin for the $2. Happy Saturday. Here's my late fee. Appreciate you checking in, my friend. Hazelor, thank you for coming to the show. For the $10 from Captain Kirk, Peter, you have an amazing podcast. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. Christ is King. I respect the Jesus, and I do not fuck with the Jesus. And thank you, as always, for your amazing support. Pirate Justin with the $5. I live in Texas, a Zio cesspool. Yes, it is. Planning on moving to Florida in a year. Why? Apparently another Zio cesspool. I can't escape Zionism, free Palestine. Well, Zionism is strong in both Christian and Jewish in the state of Florida. In the state of Texas, it's overwhelmingly Christian Zionist. Hot dog with the $5. Yesterday, a cat followed me home, so I bought some cat food for her. She ate some and then scratched my eye and ran off. Now I have cat scratch fever. I don't know if you're trying to tell a joke or if you're being serious. I know you're a jokester, but I can only assume that maybe that's what it is. So unless you tell me otherwise, that's what I'm going with. And finally, 0744 Pete with the $10. Good episode. I'm glad you liked it. I hope you all liked it. I hope you all enjoyed the show. So with that being said, smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We love you all. We appreciate you all. I'll see you Monday with Jen and Free Palestine. Good night, guys.